Now, this morning in court, the report of Oscar's psychiatric evaluation was handed over. The finding, as you heard in our earlier discussion with John Webb, was that Oscar Pistorius does not suffer from a psychiatric disorder.
Mr. Nell.
May it please the court, my lady learned assessors. My lady, the panel that was appointed to act in terms of provisions of the Criminal Procedure Act provided the necessary reports.
Yes.
Those were handed to the court, my lady. But we have copies of this report, so we beg leave to hand that in as exhibits at this stage. It's two reports, my lady. One is from the psychiatrists.
Yes, the one-page report.
Yes.
Yes.
We beg leave to mark that as triple P.
P.
And
yes.
as far as that report is concerned, my lady, the important portion is paragraph C, which indicate that at the time of the alleged offences, the accused did not suffer from a mental disorder or mental defect that affected his ability to distinguish between rightful or wrongful nature of his deeds, and a mental disorder or mental defect did not affect his ability to act in accordance with the said appreciation of the rightful or wrongful nature of his deeds.
Yes.
Now, lady, then there was also provided to us a psychologist's report by Professor Scholz.
Yes.
If that could be marked as QQQ, my lady, the important portion of that particular report in terms of a finding is contained at page 31 of the report, which reads paragraph 6.1. Mr. Pistorius did not suffer from a mental defect or
Hold on. It's page
31, my lady.
31. Yes.
Paragraph 6.1 and 6.2. 6.1. Mr. Pistorius did not suffer from a mental or mental illness at the time of the commission of the offence that would have rendered him criminally not responsible for the offences charged. 6.2. Mr. Pistorius was capable of appreciating the wrongfulness of his act and of acting in accordance with an appreciation of the wrongfulness of his act.
The defence and state both agreed that the details of the report were not in dispute.
My lady, in terms of the Act and the court order, the panel submitted their reports, my lady. It's then, in my understanding of the procedure and the process to be followed, it's then up to the state and the defence to indicate to the court if it's accepted by us,
yes,
and
yes,
if we would want witnesses to testify on it. We had a quick discussion this morning, my lady. If the court will allow us, as far as the findings are concerned, I think we both accept the finding of the panel. There may be submissions in this regard at a stage later, if we would want the court to call any of those witnesses, or if we would want to cross-examine the witnesses. But for now, my lady, to enable the court to proceed as far as the findings of both reports are concerned, it's accepted by the state, the findings, my lady. That's a good piece.
Thank you very much.
Well, joining me now is clinical psychologist Dr. D. Doctor, it's great to have you back with us. And really, I suppose for you, no surprises in terms of what came out this morning in that report.
No, absolutely no surprises with the little that we've heard at all. But I think that what is interesting is the way that kind of a report has been interpreted. Because I think that people have a tendency to say, okay, he knew exactly what he was doing. No confusion between right or wrong. Definitely a sane person. And therefore, and I think that it's not nearly as clear-cut as that. You referred a little earlier on to Dr. Meryl Foster's report, and there was a very important line, actually, in that report, where she said, although she believed he knew the difference between right and wrong, and I think really most people did, he could not always act accordingly.
I'm going to ask you to unpack all of this for us because, as you point out, Dr. Merrill Forster did say, in fact, when she gave her evidence, that he does not suffer from mental illness, certainly not in terms of the Criminal Procedures Act, but the idea then that there would have been some influence on his reasoning. How does that square up with what the report is telling us and in terms of the bigger picture of this trial?
You just need to understand quickly and contextually that the DSM-5, which is the kind of Bible, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, lists all of the disorders, ranging from mild developmental disorders to severe psychotic illnesses. Not all of them, in fact, the minority of them would indicate a severe mental disorder where people don't know right from wrong. But there are other disorders, if you like, that are still very relevant, that influence the way people think and certainly influence the way people act. So generalized anxiety disorder, which sees, I think in this case, Oscar Pistorius was primed in two ways. One is that he was hypervigilant and might have seen the world in a more hostile place, as a more hostile place. So, for instance, if you hear a noise, you might investigate the noise. If he hears a noise because of past history and experience and so on, he might see an intruder much more quickly. And other things. It could have been what I'm saying is either blind fear or blind rage. Is that mitigating? That's up to the court to say. Would it result in sort of a diminished sentence? That's up to the court to say. But these phenomena are very well described.
As a lay person then, I mean, would it be fair then to say ultimately if these reports suggest that whatever may have influenced his thinking or his reactions, it doesn't move away from the legal definition of being able to know right from wrong? Is it fair then for a layperson like myself to say, well then really all of this is all academic?
I think it's not entirely fair because there's a whole spectrum of grey. It isn't one way, therefore he has to be entirely responsible. There are many factors that cause people to react spontaneously. Whether these are taken into account in terms of the effect of the resultant sentence is up to the court, but we know that they do exist. Before we have spoken about road rage, for instance. Most of the people involved are not insane or have a mental disorder in that they know right and wrong, but they can act impulsively. It's a reaction rather than a considered response, where there's no gap between it. And whether that is in any way mitigating is up to the court.
So, I mean, we heard today that they're accepting, the general conclusions of these reports, but there may be, at some point, if necessary, some discussion around the specifics of what the actual reports are saying. So, I mean, is it your sense that, the psychology of this trial isn't quite over yet?
It's my extreme sense that it's not over yet. I think that those things need to be examined. Otherwise, conclusions are drawn without fine examination. As I say, the conclusion, the resultant conclusion might be the same, but there are many, many factors that come into it. If you have a mother who sleeps with a gun under her pillow every night, calls the police at the drop of a hat, tells you that you've got to be as good, you are as good as, if not better than other people, with no expression of vulnerability, we know that our bursts of anxiety and the ability to express vulnerability are very related. If you don't have any of that expression, you can be triggered more easily than most. That dynamic, for example, hasn't been spoken about at all. So I think that there are finer things rather than just saying, okay, that's fine, cut and dried, put to bed, we know where we stand. There are actually much more finer things that have to be examined.
The devil is always in the detail. Dr. D, as always, thank you very much for your insights. I expect you and I will continue chatting for a while yet.
We look forward to that.
All right.